Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to your, um, it's not really a topical. I don't really know what it is, but so basically, I wrote an email. Hi. I am Raphael. If you are new to Radiant Reality is me, and I am Radiant Reality. It's amazing to have you here. If you are a continued subby, you know Rafi loves you. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to like, share, or maybe hang around first to see if you actually like anything that I'm saying. And if you do, stick around, hit the subscribe button for more content. And for those of you that are already lovers of Radiant Reality, Ride or Dies, all of those good things. Lots of good things to come. I am back off my hiatus, as they say, and it is good to be back. So drop me a comment. Are you new? Are you seasoned? Have you been with Rafi for a long time? If you have, you know that I love you. So with that said, you've probably seen the title of the video and you're thinking, okay, what's going on? You guys know me. I'm not really a sensationalist in that regard. Like, yes, I'm naturally very theatrical, but I'm not a sensationalist, right? But I wrote an email not too long ago. So if you don't know, I have a mailing list. There's a link in the description box below where you can sign up to that. I send out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday emails, so you will be hearing from me in your inbox on a regular. Um, and basically, with the one of the emails that I wrote, it really hit home for me, and I got a lot of replies from that specific email. And it kind of prompted, sometimes you get like a stream of consciousness or a download of some sort. And I sat and I just wrote, and before I knew it, I had like 12 pages. So that's what I'm going to go through with you guys today to kind of give everybody a little bit of a fucking heads up as to what the hell is going on right now, and where I think it may be heading and what this might look like for all of us. So you may resonate with this, and if you do, more power. I love that. You may not resonate with this, and you know what? If you don't, more power, and I love that for you. All right, keep it moving. All right, so I'm just gonna get straight into it. So, Steve Judd, shout out to Steve Judd, absolutely love him, brilliant astrologer, and just a really nice guy. I've actually met Steve a couple of times, and he's actually a really nice person, and I've had several readings with him. Totally recommend. Um, that being said, something that he said in a video a while back was about this idea of the last gasp. Now, if you have seen the Universal 9 year video that I put out, every year I do a numerological breakdown of what the year is likely to give us, or what is likely to unfold, and how that works. I've been doing that now since 2021, I believe. And I gotta say, according to you guys, they are pretty spot on with, how they unfold. Thank you for that. If you haven't seen the Universal 9 year video, because in terms of numerology, we are in a Universal 9 year. If you haven't seen that video, there is a link in the description box below where you can check it out. It's quite long, it's very in depth, but there's some really interesting and important pieces of information in there, I personally feel. So the reason I say this is because Steve has been talking about this thing with the last gasp, and the first thing that came to me was the last gasp and the ghosts of the cycles past, right? So recently, as I was saying, I wrote that email to the Radiant Nation. That's what I call you guys. The Radiant Reality is everyone, is the collective, but the Radiant Nation, you guys are kind of like my inner circle. They're the people that sign up for my memberships. They're coming back very soon. They're the people that are on my mailing list, right? So if you want to be in the Radiant Nation, you know what to do. Now, that being said, you guys are my inner circle, but in that email, one of the things that I talked about was the nature of breaking down in order to break through, right? It's a real cliche. We've heard it so many times, like you break down before you break through. And I always say this to everybody. There's a reason that the cliches have survived, right? Because they are true, whether we want them to be or not. they stand the test of time because they end up being true, right? So that being said, it's one of the reasons as well that we all love aphorisms, even when they annoy us, right? The reason they've survived is because they've stood the test of time. Now, that being said, you might have noticed that the world is currently on fire, as I like to say to my clients. Isn't it always, right? And that's not to make light of any of the situations that are going on. What's going on in Gaza is an absolute fucking atrocity of humanity on display. The way that certain political parties are using that to their advantage is even more like it's just a disgusting display of humanity at this moment in time. There are a lot of other things that I could say. You guys know I tend not to get too much into it. Like I'll drop an opinion here and there. But as an Aquarius, I'm pretty much a fringe dweller. And a big part of the reason for that is because often I see what's behind, underneath, and over the motives of what's unfolding. And a lot of people don't, right? And that's not to say that I'm above anyone or anything like that. It's just to say there's a reason that I tend not to get too much into that stuff. And a big part of the reason, believe it or not, is because the emotional and energetics of it, I really don't like how it plays with us, right? And I choose not to allow it to. Now, that being said, this, though, right, as I was saying, the world is currently on fire. It feels different, right? We've got that whole thing going on, the likes of which we haven't seen since 1998, with the whole Milosevic and no nightmare that we had over in Kosovo. I remember that time very acutely, because I was a teenager at the time, and there were a lot of big conversations, and there was a massive influx of Kosovan people into the UK. There were a lot of really big conversations about various different things. So it was just a really interesting time. Now we have scarily accurate astrology playing out at this moment in time, and in some really unique and very interesting ways. And we have numerology really defining itself in some incredible ways as well. And that's why I say, like, if you watch that Universal 9 year video, I have to say that one and probably the 2023 one, personally, I feel they were my best because they're the ones where I really, kind of hit it on the head. Now, we've got old grandparents on thrones that seem determined to end the world as we know it. We've got oligarchs and tech bros, and insane people in positions of power that, quite frankly, are unfit for the purpose that they're doing, right? And what's worse is that we, the people, seem to be more divided than ever. Or are we? And that's a question for another video that I'm going to delve into because it's a really big topic, right? And this video, as I say, this is like a stream of consciousness. When I say I literally sat down and wrote 12 pages and it just would not stop. So what you're getting is kind of a condensed and slightly edited version of what happened that day, right? In the here and now, every religion, every prophecy, every seer, every psychic, every mystic, every one of the spiritual sciences, astrology, tarot, numerology, energy work, they all seem to be saying the same thing, that we are in the end times, right? Now, I do believe that to be the case, and there are very few specific reasons that I feel this way. And I don't think that it's all so I don't think it's because it's all so intense, even though that's definitely a part of it. I don't think it's just because it's also concentrated. My thoughts and feelings on this whole thing and the reason for this is it's because all of them are converging at this moment in time. The convergence is something that I talked about last year in that Universal 9 year, and it leads me very nicely onto the subject. And I'll finish this, by saying that all the prophecies, all the spiritual sciences all seem to be saying the same thing. That is the part of this that is really, really important. Very often we have the numerologists are saying this and the psychics are saying that and the da 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 this and da da da. But for once, we all seem to be in agreement on something, right? And so this for me really speaks volumes. It means that there isn't just power in unity, which we already know, but when we all start to agree on something, there is a message there. Now, if you are a friend, if you're a loved one watching this, if you're a client of mine watching this, you will have heard this example that I'm about to give, so you know this one, and you might smile when you hear it. But when I do client work, I will say to the, like, sometimes I'll say something to the client and they'll reply and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I literally just heard those same words from a friend or from a colleague or somebody in passing on the street the other day." That is, yes, my psychic antenna picking up on them, their energy, their sphere, if you like. But more importantly, when they say that, my reply to this is always, we can't both be wrong. Not because I'm so smart or I'm happy that I'm right or I'm so psychic or whatever. It's because when the same message comes to you from different people who don't know each other, that are very often on opposite ends of the globe, there is a universal message there. The universe is speaking to you in a really powerful way. And it's not just about synchronicity, it's the pattern revealing itself to you and speaking to you and your lifescape. Well, the spiritual sciences, no matter how much the elites tried to keep them from us and keep them for themselves, are for everybody. They are for the collective, and we are all at the moment singing from the same hymn sheet. We're talking about practitioners of Chinese metaphysics, feng shui, Chinese astrology, Western astrology, numerologists, energy workers, human design practitioners. We are all seeming to agree. That very rarely happens. And so when it does, it means that there is a message here. There's one of hope, there's one of preparation. The world as we know it is fast coming to an end. Does that mean it's all going up in smoke? No. Does that mean that there will be a painful death of all of the things that we knew to be important and normal and everyday? You bet your ass it does, right? You absolutely bet your but like listen, you know it's coming, right? So, in terms of the universal 9 year, in terms of numerology, we're currently in the universal 9 year. That is a time of endings and completions and culminations. You've heard me say this loads of times. And I think we can see that, right? I talked about this at length in that universal 9 year video. Again, there's a link in the description box if you want to check it out. If you haven't seen it, do check it out, right? And because what I was trying to explain in that video is that we are at the end of a 9 or 10 year long or a decade long cycle. Numerology travels in, 9 to 10 year cycles, give or take. We're at the end of one now, and a 9 year is all about closing down the old chapters, finishing things up and finishing things off, removing and releasing what is obsolete, reviewing the past, and gaining deep insight into what we have learned, right? What is tried, what is tested, what is true, what is real. Nine energy is ruled by Mars, and interestingly enough, at the start of the year, Mars was retrograde in the sign of Cancer. Mars, of all of the planets, hates to be retrograde, right? And in the sign of Cancer, where it's in its supposed weakest, it's a very challenging energy, and it was for all of us. And we saw this at the beginning of the year. What's really important to note here is that Mars rules Aries, and Aries is and has been housing some of the most powerful and profound energy that we have had in a long time. And if you saw that that Universal 9 year video, I talked about the 0 point of Aries and how it was being activated right the way back from November of last year, right? Not now, not just now with the Saturn and Neptune conjunction happening at 0 degrees that we're going to see the proper connection of next year in 2026. This actually started, it has its roots and its origins way back in November of 2024. And I talked about this in that video. Now, at the same time, as all of these once in a lifetime astrological transits that have been occurring and reoccurring, we have been witness to some other energies that are once in a lifetime. Pluto came full time into the sign of Aquarius. Uranus has dipped its toes now into the sign of Gemini this year. So at the same time as we come to a 9 year ruled by Mars, who was in his sign of Fool, a sign associated with women, with mothers, with care, with country, patriotism, all manner of group identities. Look at what's happening on the wider world stage, right? Pay attention to that stuff because there's a message here. And as I say, this started way back last year, not just in the here and now. What for me was really interesting that nobody seemed to talk about is that in the retrograde, starting in Leo, actually, Mars actually trined, right? Because it crossed the barrier from Cancer into Leo, it hit that 0 degree of Aries by a trine. And then when it reversed back into Cancer, it crossed over that 0 degree again. This is Mars, the ruler of Aries, trining the 0 point of Aries. Right? Nobody else seemed to think this was a big deal, which is why I personally really paid a lot of attention to it. And the fact that it was trying to that 0 degree of Aries a few times before all of this, before all of the madness ensued, that for me has a secret to it. Since no one else is seeing it, I'm going to stay stum and kind of let it all play out, but I've got a few other theories in the background. But one of the things that I really feel about this is even with the chaos, Mars went retrograde in the sign of its fall in Cancer, it was still at a trine 3 times to that 0 degree point, which means even with all the chaos that is unfolding, this is going somewhere very beneficial for humanity as a whole. We've got Saturn and Neptune ending a 30-year cycle, right? So Saturn's ending a 30-year cycle, Neptune's ending a like 160 to 170-year cycle, give or take. As if all of that wasn't enough, Jupiter entered Cancer, right? To bring the cohesion to the space after Mars kind of came in there and tore shit up and did what needed to be done to create space and raw materials for us to build on and more importantly to build forward with. And then we've got Uranus, who has newly relocated into the mutable air sign of Gemini. You think you've seen the most as yet? We haven't seen anything. And I can tell you that what we do see over the rest of the decade and into 2030 is going to be immense. Years ago, and annoyingly, I can't find the video on my channel, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that I might have deleted it. But I talked about the age of Aquarius not being started until Pluto came into the sign of Aquarius. So here we are. That video's from 2016. Don't judge, right? It's very early, Rafi. When I look back on all my early videos, I'm always like, ooh. Anyway. All of this happened largely, Pluto being the outlier, under the auspices of this universal 9 year. So we can clearly see that the idea of a convergence beginning to unfold itself, right? So the idea that things are being replaced is not new. When something is unfit for purpose, it's recycled or retired, right? That is also a very nine theme. So now at this point, where we're coming into the 9th month of the year, September, I'm definitely keeping an eye firmly on this month because it's the numerology of this. We have a natural 999, right? So we'll have the ninth day of September, which is the 9th month, and then we're in a universal 9 year. So I'm just really intrigued to see what this is going to bring up. I've got a few ideas again. I'm going to keep them to myself for now. Maybe there'll be some Easter eggs scattered around in the content that's to come over the next, well, from here on in. Now that being said, I am doing there's going to be a special little session, so stay tuned for that. There's a few things coming up. Now, imagine the incalculable odds that had to take place for you here, for you to be here, to be alive at this time while all of this is taking place, right? even with the madness, even with the chaos, the fact that Mars, the ruler of Aries, where all of the cray cray is taking place at the moment, Saturn and Neptune hanging out, wait till you see the stellium that piles up in 2026 in the sign of Aries as well. Like, it's a lot, right? Around the time of the new moon, there's so much going on, but my feeling is that the fact that we had so much trine energy, this really does go in a very positive direction for us eventually, right? Now, the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, let's talk about this. Saturn and Neptune have been talked about ad nauseum at this point and in this moment in time, but let's consider that Saturn is the outer, it's the material, it's the structure, it's the form and the shaping, the refinement process through sweat, through difficulty, through challenge, through pressure and discipline, all along with delayed gratification. Hard work and sweating, the grind can purify the body and even the mind in some very profound ways, which is one of the reasons that all of this Ozempic and Monjaro stuff doesn't sit right with me. There's something to do with the reward cycle and the brain, and that was my initial feeling of it. I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's great that we can do this, right? Human beings are so smart to do this kind of thing, but what's the other stuff going on underneath that, right? And now that so many, they've discovered that it's slightly addictive and all the rest of it, which is insane. And now a whole bunch of people are taking it, and in the UK, the price has gone up from £170 a month to like £330 a month. So, and they've just literally spent the last 6 to 8 months telling people that, oh, well, once you're on it, you can't come off it. So where are you expecting people to find this money? Madness, right? Absolute madness. Now, on top of that, Neptune is refinement of the spirit through ascension, through transcendence, losing yourself, losing your ego, being obliterated and dissolved in some way as you meld into the cosmos. It's also spiritual and intangible. It's immaterial. This is an energy of surrender to what is. When you think about Neptune and Tarot, you're looking at the Hanged Man, right? It's a very, very interesting energy. Now, imagine these two planets come together in the sign of Aries, which is the sign of the self, the sign of the first ego, the sign of the first breath, the first embodiment, the first sign of life. The mind of a child is said to be egocentric, which is true if you observe them, right? They don't really have any concept of anything outside of themselves. And that naivety is partially what we love them for, right? They are fully and totally in the moment, and the trappings and conditionings of everyday life, they just don't register. Since these two planets coming together tend to represent the complete dissolving or tearing down of something, think back to 1989 when we had the fall of the Berlin Wall. Well, Saturn and Neptune came together in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn, structures, boundaries, rules, regulations, which literally represents those things, right? It's pretty descriptive and it's pretty on the nose. The way I see this conjunction happening or working this time round in the sign of the self is the idea that the self is being dissolved, the ego is being torn down. It's the idea of me as separate or being away from or beyond others that's going away now. While Pluto in the sign of Aquarius shows us the power of the people when we work and we move together as a collective. And guess what? This conjunction is going to sextile Pluto. Now, more on that in a moment while I kind of finish my thoughts on this, because I remember as I was writing it, I was like jumping from this bit to this bit, and I was like, okay, Raf, you're going to have to put this in a sequence. I mean, this is, this chopping and changing, kind of a peek into my brain on a normal day. Now, that being said, so with the old sense of self being eroded, dissolved, and maybe even razed to the ground, we get to rebuild not only a better, but a stronger and more compassionate self. because Neptune, right? But we also get to rebuild a society that has its people at the heart of the matter. It has the people and the people as a collective, as a collective of deserving individuals who are about love and connection and freedom and liberation, and above all else, equality, right? Equally distributed everything. Does this happen overnight? Does anything, right? No, of course not. This may be 10 years down the line. And if we're completely honest about it, think about the things that are going to need to happen or to change in the next 10 years in order for us to get to that point where it's actually very good and very beneficial for everybody, right? I'm under no illusions of the breakdowns that will need to happen in order for us as a collective to break through. The to close out that Neptune thought as well, what I mean by this is when we begin to approach things from a less selfish perspective and start to honor the idea that we are all sovereign, that we are all worthy, that we are all deserving, and we are all special because we are unique. Nothing new there, right? But this time we are, as individuals and as a collective, reborn in some way to start acting like it, which is Aries' primary function. It's Mars is, Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars's primary function is to make something happen, to use your will in a way, right? What if the actions are aligned with universal truths at the macrocosmic level and the microcosmic level? For the first time in our understanding of our recorded history, we are both at the bottom of an old age and at the foot of the mountain towards the next which we climb, right? Which is a golden era potentially, right? So maybe some of us only get to glimpse what is coming and not savor all of it, but isn't it still worth taking a shot at? Right? Now, to come back to the sextile. Speaking of a sextile is the sextile between Saturn and Neptune are going to come into their conjunction. They are conjunct at this moment in time, actually, as the time I'm recording this. They're both retrograde and they're at 1 degree of Aries. So nobody's really counting this as a conjunction, even though I mean, I personally feel like it is. And I think the fact that they are retrograde at 1 degree together in the sign of Aries, the first sign, speaks volumes, right? The numerology, the astrology, it's just the synchronicity of it all, of how it's all coming together is blowing my fucking mind, right? Like it's just amazing and incredible and scary and awesome. And yeah, anyway. So, speaking of the nature of a sextile, the nature of a sextile is that of opportunity, right? And while I was writing this, there was a song that I just couldn't get out of my head, and it was Take a Chance on Me by ABBA. Never been a massive fan. Don't hate me. Don't shout at me. But I've not. I was an urban kid. ABBA was not really on my register, if you catch my drift. Although my favorite ABBA song, I have to say, was and will always be "Lay All Your Love on Me." Um, just I have a song, but just that one, right? So. The lyrics of that song, I don't know the song apart from that part, Take a Chance on Me. Anyway, the lyrics of the song are we can go dancing, we can go walking as long as we're together. Listen to some music, maybe just talking, get to know you better. Because you know I've got so much I want to do. When I'm dreaming, I'm alone with you. It's magic. You want me to leave it there, afraid of a love affair, but I think you know that I can't let go. If you change your mind, I'm the first in line. Take a chance, right? So a sextile is a chance, it's an opportunity, it's a flirtation, right? When we think about sextile energy, it's actually of the nature of Venus, right? So Venus is a fast energy. She travels a sign pretty quickly and she brings a lightness of honey and a sweetness and a goodness and a sexy time. And a sextile is a combination of elements that are complementary. What happens when you combine masculine and feminine energy? And in this case, though, it is masculine and masculine energy, right? Because we're talking about Saturn and Neptune, who are in Aries. Aries is a fire sign, therefore, it's an active or a masculine sign. And we've got Pluto, who they're going to sextile in the sign of Aquarius, which is an air sign, which is an active sign, which is a masculine sign. Since these are masculine signs we're talking about, or active energy, right? It means that there is an element of doing about this, of acting, but not only acting in the right way, but from a place of, from the right place internally. And I think this is the part of it that's really, really important. And I talked at length in some of my other work about what I think is happening with Neptune here. See the Universal 9 Year video for a deeper understanding. And since the sextile is only an opportunity, we separately and collectively have to do something with it. We must work. We've got to use and focus the energy to get a result. If the sextile is the nature of Venus and Venus is a lady, darling, right? You have to work for it. You have to court her. You have to woo her. You have to offer her gifts and goodies, right? If you want the goodies, you got to give the goodies. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so as a collective, this is a chance for humanity to really rise up and to really ascend in a way that matters so much more than many of us realize for the first time and maybe ever, right? The war is going to be won in the heart of each individual. So the question really becomes, are you getting it right with the universe, right? And I don't mean this in like a religious kind of zealot kind of way. I mean, are you working with and connecting to and aligning with the universal flow of energy and what that demands of you specifically? If you do, where we can go will have been built by you, right? Every single one of you, every single one of us, which is why it's so important for us to hold the right energy and the right vibration at this moment in time. And I'm not talking about, you know, sidebar, I can feel it, it's bubbling out, I can feel it. Here we go, soapbox moment, right? One of the things that really, really fucking pisses me right off is when people say, like, oh, it's not all about love and light, man. There's shadow and there's darkness in the world, and it's like, yeah, you think I don't fucking know that? You think I've never been through heartache and heartbreak? I've got some stories that I could tell you as well. The fact that I choose love and light, the fact that I choose to bring that with me, with the light at my back instead of what I could have brought with me, that is a testament to the fact that I understand what it means to transmute something. So don't fucking sit there and look down your nose at me because I'm talking about love and light. Because as far as I can see, the world needs a whole lot more of that at this moment in time, and it always will. Right? Let me just put that there. Trust me when I tell you, there's no plastic shaman here. Right? I've had my battles, I've had my trials and tribulations, and even still, I choose to bring something else. Right? Don't ever discount me for that, because trust me when I tell you, you'll see a different side of me. Now, that being said, soapbox moment over. Uranus trine Pluto. This is a big deal. Sorry, I feel like I needed to get that out there, right? The reason this is important is we know what the shadow is. We know how it can be useful. We know how it can be transmuted and how we can use it. However, if that's all you're about and that's all you're drawing from and that's all you're using, what else are you? Yeah? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Uranus trine Pluto. This is a big deal, right? This is a once in 84-year transit, a rare window of change. When I say once in 84-year transit, Uranus moving into the sign of Gemini is a once in 84-year transit. So unless you're like over 90, you haven't seen this before and you would have been too young to really understand what it meant. So this is new for all of us, for the whole world. It demands Uranus is it's unsteady, it's unstable, it's unpredictable, it is revolutionary above all else. It demands change and movement, it demands adaptation and the uptake of new everything, right? Which gives way to progress. Progress isn't about, isn't able to happen overnight. It is by its very nature, as it suggests, progressive. It's a powerful energy that drives us forward and now asks us to break the chains of the past, right? So, in some way, shape, or form, we are seeing the breakdown. Sorry, I'm going to grab the fan there. We're seeing the breakdown of the world that we understood, the world that we knew, right? Progress, as I say, it doesn't happen overnight. Now, Uranus has been in Taurus, where it's been all about tradition and stability and fixity, which is why the transit here was so hard. Fixed Earth, an immovable object, meets an unstoppable force. Progress is an unstoppable force by its very nature, right? Even though the old white men at the helm, no offense to anybody, seem determined to hang on to it forever, you're like, fucking let it go already. If you don't like where the new world is going, off you pop, go somewhere else, right? Now, it's been hard, right? That Uranus in Taurus transit, honey, it was not easy, right? But what was the old way of living, the old way of consuming, the old way of spending, the old way of hoarding, the old way of overproducing, the old way of underusing, and inequality. Taurus is a Venusian sign, right? It's ruled by Venus. Venus is about equality. And consider this, and I always say this, I always give this example with Venus. Um, when we look at things that we deem to be beautiful, it's because the proportions are closer to equal. And it said that the more beautiful, the more symmetrical somebody's face is, the more beautiful they are. So, that kind of speaks volumes for Venus's expression and emanation. The inequality that we have is ugly. It's tantamount to evil, quite frankly. It's unsustainable and it's fundamentally wrong, right? What is even more evident here as well, now that Uranus has come into Gemini, and Gemini is a common sign, right? It comes into a place that is about connection and togetherness, interaction, communication, true dialogue. It's a sign of learning and facts and collecting the data. It's a sign that wants to understand, to know why, right? This is the need to examine things. And Uranus is going to revolutionize how we communicate, what we communicate. You can see this, right? You can see this with certain stories breaking the headlines. Yeah, they're being hushed up left, right, and center, but they're still breaking through. And the reason this is going to continue to happen is because humanity is ready for the truth now, right? Gemini is the sign of communication, it's the sign of dialogue, right? It's the sign of news, media, outlets, etc. You can't hold it back. No matter what you do, no matter how much you press, you're not going to be able to hold it back. So it's coming. Now, Steve Judd may very well get his wish that astrology will end up being taught in schools. He's been saying this. I mean, I found out about Steve in 2015, I think, was the first time I saw some of his work. And I remember him saying then, right, like if astrology were taught in schools, the world would shift. And I agree with him wholeheartedly. Now, in 2019, I gave a talk with a wonderful friend of mine called Esteban. I've forgotten his surname. I really apologize, dude. But if you are watching this, big shout out to the Root Wave. You guys got to check him out. I love him. He's just a really, really wonderful human being. Anyway, we did a talk in 2019. It's still on my channel. I'll highlight that in the comments as well, in the description. I gave a talk on how the modern mystic was shaping the future and why it was important that we were and what we may mean, right? And I'll link to that in the description below. Uranus is going to see us breaking away from, you know, because that's its function as well, right? To upgrade, to divest interests from what is old, from what is outdated, and what is outmoded, to break the chains of the old, to break the chains of tradition, to break the chains of the past that are obsolete. It's the planet of repulsion, right? It's the planet, therefore, of divorce. Think about that. Being such, we will be divorcing from ideas and platforms that do not allow what its other primary function is all about. And what I mean is Uranus, which is the truth. We, the people, are going to start breaking away from wherever we're not seeing the truth, wherever there is too much hype, wherever there is, or hype and spin, as Steve calls it, wherever there is too much propaganda. What we want as people with Uranus in Gemini now is real, honest, raw, unedited truth, real, authentic communication about real things, about real ideas that affect real people down on the fucking ground, because that is where life happens every single day. If you've been with me long enough, you will have heard me say this. I love what I do with YouTube. I love the incredible community that I've found on here. You guys literally are a massive part of my world. And I love the work that I do. But the truth of the work that I do as a tarot reader, as an astrologer, as a numerologist, etc., is done right here at the table, right? Whether it's over Zoom, whether it's in person, this is where the real work happens, right? And this is one of the reasons I'm always very wary of people that are like, yeah, I'll put this content out there, but I don't do personal readings. And I'm always a bit skeptical because I'm like, okay, that says a lot." That is what's coming in now. And this Uranus transit is going to make it the way that we communicate in our local areas as well, a revolutionary thing, along with how we the people communicate as a collective. I'm sitting back and waiting for my telepathy powers to be coming fully online, honey. I am waiting, right? In this lifetime, I'm not waiting for next time. I want them now, right? And I've been saying this. I really feel the extrasensory perception is going to spike in the next decade. I really do. Partially because of the Uranus, partially because of Uranus moving through the sign of Gemini, the sign of the mind and communication, and all of that, but also because Neptune in the sign of Aries, right? As our senses and our humanity become more human, as we start to really love and care for and respect and feel one another. For those of us that are already empaths, this is nothing new. What I think it's going to be is a supercharging of this. Imagine if every single human being was suddenly an empath, how different the world would be. All right, since both Uranus and Gemini have links to communication systems in general, news, media outlets, posts, commerce, trade, information, both of these have connections to the nervous system as well. I'm fully expecting the streams to cross at some point, and for all of it to go much faster than it usually does, right? Now, the final thing on this is since this is a common sign, neighbors, neighborhoods are going to become much closer, more tight-knit. We're going to go backward in a sense while we're going forward. The pandemic really did a number on our social skills, on our connections that are, I think are going to change from here on in as we start to create tighter knit communities on a more localized level. And this reminds me of the forming of systems in the body, a group of cells that do a similar thing as, will then come together as specialized cells that form a tissue, and a tissue becomes an organ, right? And we are socially, we are beginning to understand the idea that as we reintegrate and reconnect on a more even keel, and we come together in smaller groups, those smaller, tight-knit groups will begin to form into something more, an organ of society, and eventually we will have recreated a new system. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the bigger picture, right? So as an example, I'm going to try and keep it short and succinct because I know this is a long video now. Specialized cells come together in the body, right? And they're like, oh, these cells are like me. So we're going to do this and we're going to do it together, right? And they do it and they populate and they create and they grow and they grow and they grow. And then because there's more of them, they become a tissue, right? And that specific type of tissue would be heart tissue, liver tissue, kidney tissue, whatever it is, right? And then eventually an organ will form out of that tissue. And I think this is what's going to start to happen in society. And hopefully that gives you an idea of how my brain is working, because I kind of feel like this is where this is all going. And this is why I say, even though at the moment it's all a little cray and it's a little bit scary, where it's going is going to be wonderful. All right. Not in the immediate, probably not for the first, or should I say, the next 10 years, if we're really honest. In order to rebuild something, something had to be razed to the ground. So that something new could be built, right? Which leads me perfectly and wonderfully onto the new and the next. Speaking of the new and the next, 2026, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. 2026 is going to be an era defining year. We will look back on this on the year of 2026 and we're all going to say, wow, it all started then. I'm not going to into too much detail on this because, as always, you will be getting your annual Universal Year video. That's coming. Well, we're still in August, so not anytime soon, but it's coming. All right. I will say though that, and I've been saying this since 2023, that 2026 is going to be an era-defining year, not just because it's a universal year one, but because it's the start of a brand new cycle that we, haven't really explored yet. And I mean, like, for real, okay? This is already an unprecedented time in history. So, what we're going to see going forward is going to be a very powerful moment. The last of the changes will occur by April, spring of 2026 will be where 2026 really begins to get into it, where it really starts to pick up steam. Because at that point, everything will have moved. All the planets will be, taking real traction in their new homes. We'll have already had the true Saturn Neptune conjunction and so much more. And alongside all of that, there's a few other powerful things that are taking place, and I'll get into that in the larger video. So we've had the old. We've had the intensity of endings and completions. We have the wrapping up of cycles, the completion of eras, which means a new cycle, a new era now begins, right? And it starts with this one. It's starting with the momentum of the ages behind it. A fresh tide of energy is going to be available to us, and it will bring a new wave of everything. The thing about change, as we have seen it, right? It's not easy. It comes with all of its own stuff. This is by its very nature going to be a year of change and upheaval as new things come into the mix, as new ground is broken by these planets that we've been talking about, as a new cycle begins, new ideas, new ways of being, pioneering ideas, pioneering technologies, new laws, new rules, new regulations, new societal norms all start to unfold here. And as one energy tells us, it's going to be a fresh start. And the thing about this as well is many of the things that are begun, many will be started, and many ideas and notions will be planted as seeds in the new energy that is 2026. Seeds don't just sprout overnight. Right, so we will really have to watch and see what unfolds as the decade moves forward in order to really understand what the future is going to look like. But it really does start in 2026. If I had to say, I would say that the new age dawns in 2026, right? It's the dawn of a new age. It's the start of the age of Aquarius for real. Now, what's interesting about this is the human design system says that it's eyes on 2027. And I get that, right? It's the year after. It's still pretty close as far as I'm concerned. And when I say an era defining year, I mean that this will be one as a collective that we look back on and say, that was the year that changed everything, right? It can be a game changer or it can be the beginning of a downward spiral. And I know what I'm hoping for. And I also like, what I personally am going to continue to move towards and try to bring to everybody. I have some clear ideas of how I'm going to work with this energy and what it's going to be about for me. I had a lot of really important messages come in to say, this is the task that we give you, right? This is what we want you to do. This is what we feel you are responsible for. And I remember some of those messages coming in and being like, I don't know about that. I'm busy. What, for the next decade? I don't think so, mate. Mm. I laugh now because as they came in, it's the same as all of us. We're only one person. But if we do our bit, and that adds to the collective and then we move as a collective, the world changes, right? I do have some really wonderful things coming up for those of you that are going to be interested, so stay tuned because it's going to be some stuff that, even if I say so myself, is pretty awesome and I've worked really, really hard on. And I think this year the way that I do everything, I think you're going to really enjoy. So to close out, I want to do a bit of quick fire round topics to highlight what we need to know and what we need to see that kind of tie into the video's thumbnail, right? So the first one, the wars. The wars that we are seeing are the last of the old cycle of Aries, right? A cycle is, literally a cycle. So if Aries is the beginning, everything that we're seeing at the moment, how it's all playing out, how it's all unfolding, how it's all breaking down, and all of that kind of stuff is literally a part of the last era, right? So the wars that we're seeing are old, outdated versions of life and humanity where greed and power corrupt, right? They just corrupt. Now, this is a time of intensity that leads to a moment where we as a collective just say enough, right? Enough of this shit, right? This is not us. This is not what we want. This is not, and I refuse to take part in it anymore. And when we do that as a collective, who fights the wars? When we as a collective say enough, I'm done with it, I'm not getting involved, no thank you, I'm turning a blind eye, right? When we, the people, on behalf of ugly old men who really have fuck all else to do with but collect numbers and more toys, right? And that's really what it is, isn't it? Right? Let's call a spade a spade. When people just say, no, I'm not doing it anymore, what happens then? We let the old codgers fight it out with a set of sticks. I mean, look, it would be a good laugh, right? I would pay money to see that. Uh, uh, lighten in the mood, all right? Don't take it too seriously. The changes. So the changes that are coming up and coming forward are going to accelerate. If you think the world moves fast now, yeah, ain't seen nothing yet. Baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. Even though I haven't seen the new Fantastic Four film, I've seen like snippets, and the aesthetic that they're giving, it's kind of like the 1950s, but if it were the 2050s. I think that's what we're heading towards, right? How exciting. The changes that are are not just happening to us as a society, they're going to be happening politically, financially, spiritually, especially, and even I think biologically, right? We'll definitely see a new blood group emerge. Because there's different stresses now, right? There's different things that are required or needed from the human body. So, simple to adapt to the way that things are, what do humans do best? We evolve, right? And I know a lot of people might say, like, oh, that's not true, look at us. But, like, really and truthfully, I love humanity. When I look at, like, when you think however many thousand years ago, we were literally sitting in caves, like, and fire was the height of technological wonder compared to what we have now. Like, how can you not marvel at us? We are built to survive. We are built to adapt, right? And we do it really, really well. So why can't we just send it all in a direction that's actually beneficial for fucking everybody? The changes that are ahead of us over this next decade is all about the build, right? The build of the new world, which I think is really exciting. So I will say, blue collar jobs is probably where there's going to be a lot of work, working with your hands, working to build what is going to be the new world, right? Is going to be an important part of the process. Yes, we've got new technology and software and AI and all the rest of it, but there's a lot of things that it can't do just yet, right? So I think this is going to be a synthesis. And if we see it that way, we can stop buying into the fear mongering and the scaremongering. All the obsolete ones that are basically useless positions in terms of work are going to disappear, right? I'll be going into all of this a lot more depth when I bring out that Universal 1 year video. So the breakdowns, in order to break through, we have to break down, right? We have seen that and we are seeing it unfold in incredibly messy kind of ways at this moment in time. What we know and what we knew is crumbling before our eyes, and it's uncomfortable and it's scary because it means that whether we want it or not, the changes are coming and they are happening, right? Not later, not in decades. The changes are starting now, right? And as of next year, you're going to see there's going to be a lot more of them implemented. They won't just be on a societal level, they will also be on an infrastructure level. New fuel sources are coming in, new ways of production are coming in, new ways of just about everything that we can think of is happening. And when all labor stuffs really disappear, we as a collective are going to turn our eyes and our sights to greater things, right? To greater heights, because the ground level stuff will be easily taken care of. And as the Lady Galadriel said to Frodo, do not let your hearts be troubled. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. What I am saying is, remember what I said about the fact that all of this started with Mars trining that 0 degree. Where it goes eventually, once we get over what's needed to be done, I think will be so much more beneficial for humanity than we've ever probably ever had it. Now, the realizations. This is something that's happening right now. And I spoke about this with another email with my community recently. It's kind of along with an idea I had on one of my walks that spawned this video, actually, right? It was kind of, and then all of a sudden it was just like, right, just a stream, right? Stream of consciousness. No searching, purely just channeled. All of this just kind of flowed out of me, right? The realizations that we're having at the moment can be described, can be described that the astrology and the numerology are working together. They can even be highlighted from channelers and seers and psychics out there. Incredible things are happening, and the realizations that are happening at the ground level to just about everybody is profound, right? We are reaching what is known as a critical mass point. A consciousness is going to wake up and go, get the monkeys out of the driving seat, is what I want to say here, right? If you have, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, there's a book called The Celestine Prophecy. I remember reading that book at like 17, tender age of 17. I'd not long turned 17. I think I was about 17 in a week, and my dad gives me a copy of this book. And I remember when I say like devouring it, I mean and I was like shook because there were so many things in it. And in that book, one of the things that he talks about actually is a critical mass where enough people wake up, where enough people ask the right questions at the right time. That's when we start to really shift in consciousness. This is happening now. The realizations about yourself, about your history, about your heritage, about the magic in your veins and in the world that has been denied to you, right? Or from you, or whatever you want to say, right? The nature of reality and the spirit. These are things that are hit in multiple levels and in huge, very profound ways. And when the hearts of the individuals start to change, they form little groups, just like the cells, just like the systems, just like the tissues, just like the organs, just like the systems, and they create more. They create something different. Think about the greatest realization moments that you've had recently, and then decide what you really want to go for based on the new information, because it's going to take new thinking in order for us to get there. Period. Okay. The strategies. Well, this is the part that I'm really excited about. I've got a few sessions coming up that I think you're going to really enjoy. So stay tuned for those. I've got some lots of weird and wonderful things that are coming up that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. Okay. Now, as you are watching this in a 9 year, at the end of that 9 year, ask yourself, I say at the end of the 9 year, we've still got, 4 months and change of this year left, right? But you get my point. Um, what have you learned? How have you changed? How have you developed? What is now true for you that maybe wasn't before, right? Think about the last 9 or 10 years of your life, right? And I mean, really go through it. What are the gems of wisdom that you gained? What are the lessons that were hard won? What are the moments of forward momentum that are really speaking to your soul, right? In order to know where you are going, you really do have to understand where you've been, right? And that's not so that you can take it all with you. All right, it's so that you can leave behind what did not truly advance you and what is just baggage and superfluous shit, right? What you really know that you're ready to let go of, to release, to relinquish, to rise above. If ever there were a time to get really real with yourself about who you are, about where you're going, and what your true motivations are, this would be it, right? This is your wake up call for that moment. Whatever you do can be totally selfish, right? As long as it serves the collective. And I'll say that again. What you do, what you want, what you build, what you create, what you decide you want for yourself can be totally selfish as long as it serves the collective. That's the only condition. All right. Now, before you start the new business, when you go in that new direction, before you go decide to world domination, before you call for abundance, put others first, not to be subservient, right? But because that is the old programming, the me, the mine, the for myself, and those I deem to be worthy. That's the old pattern. That's the old ideas. That's the old manifesting. If you want more of that, go ahead, see what it gets you. It's up to you. You don't have to listen to me. I'm a nobody from nowhere on YouTube. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to listen to me. If your first thought, however, is how will this improve the world? Watch it fly. If your first instinct is, how will this benefit people? Watch it succeed. Because the world that we're heading to is one where everyone knows what your real intentions are. And when that is the case, all of the hollow money grabbing bullshit that's just about your own greed or survival or whatever the case might be, it's all going to fall apart. You're going to see this on the wider world stage. Pay attention. Finally, the destination. I can't speak for the whole of humanity. I am just one person doing my best to do my bit. I can't say where it will all go, but hopefully I've given you a decent enough idea of what's likely unfolding, what's been unfolding, and where it really has the potential to go. We are heading to a multi-dimensional, frequency elevated temporal shift that requires us to be more human than ever before. Not a star seed, not a galactical this, a nether regional xeno archetypal form being from some other planet, but a deeply integrated, elevated human being. Because when you understand what it means to be truly, fully human, oh my gosh, like what we are capable of when our abilities are unleashed and no longer suppressed in various different ways, you will realize we have always been intergalactic. We have always been multi-dimensional. And you know, I hate this term, but we have always been supernatural. We are psychic. We are precognitive. We are telepathic. We are super creators. We are capable of incredible feats. And trust me when I say, Google and ChatGPT ain't got shit on us when we are truly connected, right? The destination I really feel that we are going towards is one where being human is remembered for the privilege and the true blessing that it really is. So that's what I got for you. Who am I to say any of this? Simple. My name is Raphael, and I'm a human being. If this spoke to you, if this resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, feel free to get at me in the comments. If you would like to sign up to my mailing list, there is a link below for that. If you haven't seen the Universal 9 video, there's a link for that as well. Um, Something very different for you compared to what you're used to seeing me do. And I really hope that it resonates. I really hope that it speaks to you in some way. And I really hope that it serves you as well. All right. With that said, you know Rafi loves you. Take care. I'll see you in the comments, and I will definitely see you real soon.